Warm greetings from the High 10. It's Everyday Shenanigans, and thanks for joining me. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. It's very nice here in the High 10. I'm going to go ahead and get started. The biological father has spoken, and after I give that commentary, I will give you some stats pertaining to foster care, adoption, and then I will play audio pertaining to the children, information that was given with Brian Wang and Chief Walker a year ago. And then I will also play audio from Court TV. Said information that is viable to the title of my video. Trezell and Jacqueline West, you forgot something. And the Queen is going to tell you what you forgot. In September of 2020, when you exacted the crimes against two innocent children. You see, detectives have always said that in order to catch a killer, you have to think like a killer. And it has been known that there are 50 ways to kill someone and 100 ways to get caught. And I'm going to show you what I believe they have against Trezell and Jacqueline West as evidence in this very bizarre and disturbing case. Thank you for joining me. Biological father of missing Kern County boy speaks out after adoptive parents charged with murder. This was uploaded Friday. Thank you all so much for joining me. Let's see if I can get this video to play. ABC 7 is the source.
Those adopted. We are hearing from the biological father of two young Antelope Valley brothers who investigators believe were murdered by their adoptive parents. Those adoptive parents, Trezell and Jacqueline West, pleaded not guilty in court today. The judge has ordered them held without bail. 4-year-old Orrin West and his 3-year-old brother Orson were reported missing from their home in California City in 2020. Their bodies have not been found, but the DA says an investigation has revealed that the boys had been dead for 3 months at the time.
I just want justice for my kids and, what these people did to me and, the torment I had to go through, to find out what was going on with my kids.
The boys' biological family would like them to be known by their birth names, not the names given them by the couple who allegedly murdered them. Their birth names are Sincere Pettis and Classic Pettis.
All right, thank you for joining me. That's a brief commentary. I'm going to go ahead and read the rest of the information. Thank you so much for joining me. Charles Pettis, the boy's biological father, says it's been tormenting having to find out what happened to his children. A man is speaking out and pleading for justice for his two young children who investigators believe were murdered by their adoptive parents in Kern County's California City. Charles Pettis is the biological father of Orrin West 4 and Orson West 3, whose birth names were Sincere and Classic Pettis. Pettis says it's been tormenting having to find out what happened to his children. I just want justice for my kids, and you know what these people did to me and the torment that I had to go through to find out what was going on with my kids, Pettis said Thursday. The boy's biological family would like the children to be known by their birth names instead of the names given to them by their adoptive parents. The adoptive parents, Trezell West, 35, Jacqueline West, 32, entered pleas in a Bakersfield courtroom Thursday to 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 felony counts of willful cruelty to a child, and a misdemeanor charge of making a false report of an emergency. They could face 30 years to life in prison if convicted. They were ordered held without bail, with the judge calling them a significant and substantial risk to public safety. Just knowing that they are handcuffed and they aren't leaving is a blessing, Rosanna Wills, a cousin to the missing boys, told KERO-TV. I can finally get some sleep now, knowing they're not out just running. So it's a lot of relief on our family. The Wests were indicted by the grand jury, arrested Tuesday night. Their trial is tentatively set for May 23rd. The boys were reported missing from their family's backyard in the desert town of California City, December 21st, 2020. A huge search by law enforcement agencies and community members failed to find them. In announcing their arrest, Kern County District Attorney Cynthia Zimmer said investigators believe the boys died 3 months before the parents reported them missing, but she declined to provide details until the trial. The bodies of the children haven't been found. The family has 4 other children, 2 of them also adopted and are all in protective custody. The missing boys lived with the West since 2018. The couple fostered them and then officially adopted them in 2019. The family previously lived in Bakersfield, about 60 miles west of California City. Zimmer previously said that a week after the boys were reported missing, crucial information came to light that brought in the involvement of police in Bakersfield. The Associated Press contributed to this report. If you need verification for the information, ab7.com is the source. That's my first source. The next source is Statista. This will be data and stats gathered. Note that it can vary, but this is a rough guesstimate of foster care and children and adoptive parents. Thank you for joining me. Foster care and adoption in the U.S., statistics and facts. This was uploaded February 9th, 2022. Foster care applies to a system in which a minor, someone under a certain age indicating adulthood, is put into an institution, group home, private home of a foster parent. Adoption refers to the legal act of a parent or parents other than the birth parent providing permanent care for someone under the age of 18. Adoption can take place within the United States or internationally. However, there has always been some controversy among transracial adoptions in the United States, arguing a lack of preparation of white families in dealing with racism. But on the other hand, there's a higher volume of white families that are seeking to adopt. These are the stats. Number of children in foster care in the United States, 407,493. Number of children awaiting adoption in the United States, 117,470. Number of foster or other unrelated underage children who lived in households in the United States, 1.42 million. The most important key figures provide you with a compact summary of the topic of foster care and adoption in the U.S. and take you straight to the corresponding stats. Foster care. Number of children who entered foster care in the United States, 216,838. Number of children who exited foster care in the United States, 224,396. Number of female children in foster care, 198,387. Adoption. Number of terminations of parental rights, 63,800. Number of children adopted with public child welfare agency involvement, 66,035. Number of children white ethnicity adopted with public agency involvement, 29,325. Inter-country adoption. Number of children adopted from China in the United States, 202. Female share of children adopted from abroad in the United States, 50.74%. Male share of children adopted from abroad in the United States, 49.26. In the following 4 chapters, you will quickly find the 27 most important statistics relating to the foster care and adoption in the U.S. U.S. children's living arrangements from 1970 to 21. They will give you the said information about those said stats. I'm going to go ahead and pick foster care. Let's see what it says. Let's see. Okay. Thank you for joining. This is Statista.com. In 2020, about 216,838 children in the United States entered into foster care in that year. This is a decrease from the previous year when 252,352 children across the country entered into foster care. Number of children entered in foster care in the United States from 2007 to 2020. 2020, 216,838. 2019, 252,352. 2018, which would be the year that the children went to the West home, 262,902. 2017, 270,200. 2016, 273,174. And then it goes all the way down to 2008. So let's say the highest number of children to enter into the foster care between 11 and 2020 would be the year 2008, 280,423. This is a very sad situation pertaining to the boys and many other children because they are deemed deceased. And there are other children who are also in foster care and also who have been adopted. There are cases of mild to serious abuse of children in foster care, as if they were still at home with the people who left them and they entered into foster care. So you see, there's a gamble in having children. There's no guarantee that the people who bring the children here on the earth will do right by them, nor will the people who are given the opportunity to take care of the children through placement, through the foster care system. Indeed, it is a gamble. But this is the latest information that I'm bringing to you. It was uploaded February 9th, 2022. If you want to get more information from Statista, please log into their app and it will give you the latest information pertaining to children in foster care. But just know that in 2020, 216,838 children entered into the foster care in that year. It's very sick information, but that's the point. The children have to go somewhere, and that's just the way it has been designed. Whether it be a parent died, a parent became sick, incarcerated, forfeited their rights, or the state came in and took the children from the said parent. This is by Adoption Network. Thank you for joining me. Going to give you a little more information. Although no more than 2% of Americans have actually adopted, more than a third have considered it. 1 out of every 25 U.S. families with children have an adopted child. According to the U.S. Census, about half of these have both biological and adoptive children. This information is by Adoption Network. If you need verification, I'm not going to read you about the international. I'm going to talk about open adoptions. How common are they? Today, almost 60 to 70% of domestic adoptions are now open adoptions, which means there's a degree of openness and disclosure of information between adoptive and birth parents regarding the adopted child. How many Americans are adopted? Around 7 million Americans are adopted. How many children in America are adopted? There are about 1.5 million adopted children in the United States, which is 2% of the population, or 1 out of 50 children. So 1.5 are adopted in America, 1.5 million, which is only 2% of the general population here in the United States, or 1 out of 50 children. How many children are adopted each year? Around 140,000 children are adopted by American families each year. How common is adoption? Nearly 100 million Americans have adoption in their immediate family, whether this includes adopting, placing, or being adopted. 6 in 10 Americans have had personal experience with adoption, meaning that they themselves, a family member or a close friend, was adopted and, had adopted a child or had placed a child for adoption. What is the average age of an adopted child in a private adoption? 62% were placed with their adoptive families within a month of birth. How many children are adopted per year? About 135,000 children are adopted in the United States each year. Of non-step parent adoptions, about 59% are from the child welfare or foster system. 59%, that's a high number. 26% are from other countries, and 15% are voluntarily relinquished American babies. How many people are waiting to adopt a child? There are no national statistics on how many people are waiting to adopt, but experts estimate it's somewhere between 1 and 2 million couples. Each year, there are about 1.3 million abortions. Only 4% of women with unwanted pregnancies place their children through adoption. Let me repeat that. 1.3 million abortions every year. and only 4% of women with unwanted pregnancies place their children through adoption. So that is a very small number of women, considering how many people we have in the United States and women who have become pregnant, have placed their children through adoptions. So that means whether they wanted the child, didn't want the child, struggling, whatever, 4%. That is a very low amount. What is the most adopted race? 37% of adopted children are non-Hispanic white. Compared with adoptive parents, 73% which are non-Hispanic white. Overall, 40% of adopted children are of a different race, culture, ethnicity than both of their adoptive parents or their sole parent if there is only one parent in the household. How many children are available for adoption in the United States? There are 107,918 foster children eligible for and awaiting to be adopted. In 2014, 50,644 foster kids were adopted, a number that has stayed roughly consistent for the past 5 years. The average age of a waiting child is 7.7 years old, and 29% of them will spend at least 3 years in foster care. What is the average age of an adopted child? The average child awaits for an adoptive family for more than 3 years. 11% spend 5 years or more waiting for a family. That is a total of 43,083 children. The average age of children waiting for an adoptive family is 8 years old. How many children are in the foster care system in the United States? On a given day, there are nearly 428,000 children in foster care in the United States. In 2015, over 670,000 children spent time in the U.S. foster care. Let me say that again. 2015, over 670,000 children spent time in the U.S. foster care. That is a lot of people. That's under 1 million. Unfortunately, instead of being safely reunified with their families or moved quickly into adoptive homes, many will languish for years in foster homes or institutions. How long does the average child spend in the foster care system? More than 60% of children in foster care spend 2 to 5 years in the system before being adopted. Almost 20% spend 5 or more years in foster care before being adopted. 20%, you guys. Some never get adopted. How many children are waiting to be adopted in the United States? Over 400,000 children in foster care in the U.S. 114,556 cannot be returned to their families and are waiting to be adopted. Among these children, males outnumber females. Very interesting, because we are now talking about 2 boys. Once again, among these children, males outnumber females. African American children are disproportionately represented, and over half are 6 years old or older. Let me repeat, because we're also talking about African American boy children. Males outnumber females. African American children are disproportionately represented, and over half are 6 years or older. How much does it cost the government to keep a child in foster care? State and federal expenditures for foster care administrative costs, placing and monitoring children in foster care, total $4.3 billion. The number of children entering foster care or in care total 679,191. Thus, the average administrative cost per child served per year was $6,675. This is a guesstimate, I'm assuming, per child here in America. Wow, what is information. I want to thank you all so much for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Adoption Network is the source for this said information pertaining to adoption and foster care here in the United States. I've brought you ABC 7 as a source for the biological father speaking out. I brought you Adoption Network for adoption statistics, and I also brought you Statista.com pertaining to foster care and adoption in the U.S. Many of you are probably wondering about the title of the video. this video is pertaining to what Jacqueline and Trezell West left behind. You see, when you two decided to induce, the word has been used in indictment, your children to exact these heinous crimes, not caring about yourself, your own freedom, not caring about your own children, their livelihood and their mental state, and nor the livelihoods of the two children who are now deceased, you have marked your children. And we have to pray that they get the help they need, because they will now carry the burden of what they did on that fateful day in September of 2020. You've scarred them. And we have to pray that somewhere in their little minds, they will forget about September 2020. We will never know how these children will pan out as young people or adults, but we have to lean on faith that they will do well in the world and they will not act out the violence that you coerced them into exacting on two small babies. You two are diabolical. And I'm going to bring what I believe has been left behind by you two. You two forgot something. And I think it was obvious. The evidence. If you all pay close attention to the beginning of the story in Cal City, Chief Walker was telling you in a subtle way that they were guilty. I always said to myself that something's missing. It's something on his face. He knows something, but naturally he couldn't tell it. I went back into one of the interviews with Brian Wayne, and that video is dated January 23rd, 2021. That means on that fateful day that video was uploaded to the YouTube queue, Mr. Walker knew that Jacqueline and Trezell West were responsible for the deaths of these children and are missing at that time, because that was a month later. And it says in the commentary by the district attorney that after 1 week of the 911 call to the dispatch, they had crucial information that the children never made it to Cal City. So that means when Mr. Walker did his 1 month interview on update pertaining to the children, he had to have known that these two were suspects in the disappearance of the children and possibly their demise. How interesting to know that this man was holding this unbearable secret and could not tell the citizens of Cal City nor the public. That has to be a hell of a burden to carry. And now we're into a new year and the truth has come out. But the boys are still hidden. I do not think that there will be a plea. And I don't even think there'll possibly be a plea offered. I could be wrong. But the one thing I tell myself is the obvious. These two suspects went into court brazen on Thursday and pled not guilty. So why would I plead not guilty and take a plea? It makes no sense. Why would I divulge where you can find the children? That defeats the purpose of pleading not guilty. They're going to ride this ride all the way to the end unless something changes or somebody decides to finally have a heart or basically self-serving to save their own life inside a prison, tell the truth. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. I'll super chat to welcome during the live. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm going to bring you some information. Pertaining to Court TV, very, very interesting information that I was listening to show you how diabolical this sick story is. Oops, sorry about that. Sorry about that, you guys. Just want to make sure I get all the information played for you all. I want you all to listen to this information very carefully. I may have played it before, but I'm going to play it again because I believe what they left behind for them to go to the bio parent to get DNA is the obvious. When I was watching Duty Wrong the other day, something a gentleman said on the program about exacting a crime. You would need privacy. So that means a home, apartment. I do believe this crime was exacted in the apartment where they last lived, Casa Loma. I believe it took place in one of the bedrooms. And I believe DNA was left behind through blood. I do believe it's in the carpet. I believe they went in and got a warrant, perhaps, and took fiber out of the apartment and compared it to the bio family father's DNA. Transference is another issue. Whenever you try to put this delicately as I can, bleed out, hit with an object, instrument, there will be blood splatter. So therefore, you can get things on your clothing, such as dark clothing, and not know or pay attention. Your shoes, shoelaces, they're in the crevices of your shoes. Doesn't matter if you clean them, put them in the washing machine, there's still blood. And as I said, the walls, they will hold content from someone being beat. I believe something was left in that apartment pertaining to the boy's DNA. I do believe this. And that is what they're comparing. I also believe the children told what happened that fateful day in September. And I also believe there's digital evidence. I do believe that they taped the crime. Now, some are trying to figure out why. Snuff films, I don't know. I don't know these people. But what I do know, they're diabolical and they are sinister. And in the end, it's not going to matter. The DA says she's adamant about what she has, and I'm going to ride with that. But that's what I think they left behind, is when they coerced the children to attack these poor babies, their DNA was left behind in the room where this crime took place. I don't think this took place out in the open, because that would be foolish. I think it took place in the last place where they lived. And that to me would be the house of horrors. Indeed. I don't see how anybody would even want to live there, knowing what happened. Very sick. And I'm wondering if the management told the people that lived in the apartment, hey, not a great place. But who's going to tell it? Even after finding out possibly the children could have been injured in the said apartment. This place, I believe, has a lot of covering up. This is Billy Politan, Court TV.
It's not the outcome that you want. It's not the good outcome. It's worst case scenario. If it's a murder case that's unsolved, you want to find who's responsible. But when it's a missing persons, you want to find the people. When it's missing children, you absolutely want to find those children. And I want to come here on the air and say, breaking news, this is unbelievable. One of the unsolved cases involving these missing children, and they've been found, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying that tonight. I am not saying that tonight. But the case of Orrin and Orson West, 3 and 4 years old, those two little boys that we've been profiling for over a year, out of Cal City, California, and Bakersfield, California, were missing children. That's what the case was, missing children. But now the DA says the case has been solved. And as I mentioned, it is worst case scenario. Take a listen.
I have information about Orrin and Orson West, the two young boys who were reported missing from California City 14 months ago. On December 21st of 2020, Orrin was 4 years old and Orson was 3 years old. Their adoptive parents in California City, Trezell West and Jacqueline West, reported to the California City Police Department that the boys had disappeared from their backyard. The California City Police Department began a search for the boys in the area around their home. After a period of time, the FBI joined in the search, as did the California Highway Patrol and search and rescue from the Kern County Sheriff's Department. The community also came out to assist in looking for the boys, but to no avail. They were not located. 1 week later, crucial information came to light that necessitated the involvement of the Bakersfield Police Department and the Kern County District Attorney's Office. Law enforcement worked diligently, hundreds of hours in the next 12 months, looking for the boys. This morning, I'm saddened to announce that the investigation has revealed that Orrin and Orson West are deceased. The investigation has also revealed that they died 3 months before their adoptive parents reported them missing. However, I am pleased to announce that this week, the Kern County Grand Jury indicted Trezell and Jacqueline West, the adoptive parents, for the murder of Orrin and Orson West. One of the questions that I'm sure you would like to know is, have the bodies of Orrin and Orson been found? And the answer to that is no, they have not been found. However, I would like to emphasize that the fact that law enforcement have not found their bodies does not preclude a murder prosecution. As a matter of fact, there have been many hundreds of what we call no-body homicides prosecuted across the United States successfully, and even no-body homicides have resulted in murder convictions in Kern County.
The indictment itself took approximately 3 months. Over 50 witnesses testified during the course of the indictment. Much of those witnesses' testimony was extremely emotional as it related to this case. But that's to be expected from a case that involves the murder of 2 innocent children.
This is not a resolution in this case. And there will not be a resolution completely in this case until these boys are brought home.
I told you, worst case scenario. So what I want to do here in this next half hour, I want to start in the first half of what we're doing, focus in on what prosecutors talked about today and how investigators got there, try to dig into some of these facts. Then the second part of what we'll do tonight is take another listen to the story that was given by the now murder defendants, the adoptive parents in this case, Trezell and Jacqueline West. We'll break down their story. But let's start with what the DA is saying in the investigation, what they found out, what they need to find out. Incredible guests tonight. Joining me tonight in Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen is with us. In Monroe, North Carolina, death investigator and forensic criminologist Dr. Laura Petler. In Denver, Colorado, a reporter has been covering this case from the start and is now a reporter and anchor with our great affiliate KMGH in Denver. Bayan Wang is back with us. And in Bakersfield, California, a reporter with our other great affiliate KERO in Bakersfield, Vanya Patino is with us as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. This was such big news, and we received it last night at the end of the show, and we've been working all day gathering great guests and information tonight. I want to start with Bayan Wang because we've talked about this case in the past. The first thing that jumps out to me was what the DA said, is that they believe this murder took place 3 months before they were reported missing. Brian, I know you were putting together the timeline of this case. Does that put this family, does that put Orrin and Orson being murdered not in Cal City, but in Bakersfield, California?
Well, Vinny, first of all, as you mentioned in the very beginning of this, there's no good news that comes out of this. This is all incredibly heartbreaking. It's trying to find a tone of moving this forward without getting too pumped of this development. But a lot of people have been waiting for answers, and today I think there was a lot that was revealed, and also more rabbit holes that people are going to go down the path of. Now, to get to your question, the timing of things is incredibly suspicious. Is it surprising that the DA believes that this crime occurred 3 months before they moved to California City? No, it's not surprising, because as we have been reporting, you and I, Vinny, no neighbors in California City have ever seen Orrin or Orson West. And I think this tipped off investigators from the very beginning. And there have been multiple agencies involved in this. I think that one of the biggest pieces of information that came out is from the DA's press conference today is they don't believe that Jacqueline and Trezell West acted alone. In fact, if you read the indictment, they believe that both in the second-degree murder counts and the second-degree and the other counts of willful child cruelty had other people involved in it as well. And so one of the great questions a reporter asked was, has any other person been detained or arrested in this case so far? And Kern County DA Cynthia Zimmer was not able to answer that question.
Dr. Laura Petler, let me ask you, as a death investigator, forensic criminologist, they have not recovered the bodies of these two angels. They have not found Orrin and Orson, but they are convinced that they were murdered 3 months before being reported missing. What type of evidence do you think they have been able to recover here?
When we're talking about a staged homicide like the homicides of Orrin and Orson, in this kind of a case, there's always 3 types of staging that you're looking at. You're looking at linguistic staging, you're looking at visual staging, and you're looking at nonverbal staging. And in this case, we have Trezell and Jacqueline exhibiting behaviors on all 3 spectrums of linguistic, visual, and nonverbal. So the type of evidence that we expect to find from visual staging would be concealing the bodies and concealing evidence, creating evidence, and hiding things. Also planning the way that they dispose of the bodies and the evidence. Also creating the story that they're going to tell. So there's a lot of different ways that they create visual evidence. Then, of course, they create linguistic evidence by giving false statements to police and 911 calls that are misleading. So the purpose of staging is to misdirect the law enforcement investigation, and clearly that's what they tried to do, but it failed miserably because they're now in custody charged with murder.
Vanya Patino, reporter, KERO in Bakersfield. We could put back up those pictures. We had some live pictures from a vigil that's taking place in Bakersfield tonight. Kind of bring us up to speed with the latest. There was this announcement today. Have we heard from the biological family? Have we heard from relatives of the now accused murderers? What else is going on out in Bakersfield, Vanya?
Yeah, so after the press conference ended, we walked outside of the courtroom, and there was the biological aunt and the biological cousin, Rosanna Willis, who has been the one who's giving media a lot of the information that they've been getting, as well as Keisha Stevenson, who's been leading a lot of these vigils and prayers, like the one that you're seeing live right there on your screen. Absolutely devastated, just numb. They said, it's something that they had hoped really hard and prayed for that wouldn't be true, is that they were dead. And now just finding out that it was 3 months before they even made that call and put in the missing report was made them really angry. They said that word many times, was they were just very angry and questioned why would someone ever do something to kids? You know, these are people who seek to get custody of the kids, and now to find out that this is what developments that have been made, they were just very sad. A very emotional response that we got from the family today. But they're still looking for justice. Like you said, this is not the end. The bodies have not been found, and I was left with them wanting to give them a proper burial. So they're going to stick fighting and continue to rely on the community and a push from social media and from us, from the media as well, to find those bodies.
Jason Jensen, I want you to take a listen to Chief John Walker from the Cal City Police, who again, Bion was interviewing during all of this. But I want you to listen to what he said, and I want to get your take on the significance of all this.
In the initial search of the home, there were scent dogs used, correct?
Correct.
What was the purpose of that?
To locate the children. You know, to pick up the scent of the kids in the house. Once they get the scent of the kids in the house, then they like us, start to widen their search. But the dogs never picked up any scent outside the house.
Could you put that in terms of why that is important to note, that there was no scent of the kids outside of the home?
It doesn't necessarily mean anything in particular, but it does lead us to believe that, you know, the kids did not wander outside the house.
Where was the last positive ID, hence the last time Orrin and Orson were seen?
To the best of our knowledge?
Yes.
The day that they were missing.
From the parents?
From the parents.
Now, you guys go to the neighborhood to see if anybody else has seen the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about anyone other than the adoptive parents. Was there a last positive ID of Orrin and Orson West anywhere other than California City?
Probably in Bakersfield with the grandmother.
Okay, so then the grandmother confirmed a specific date where you saw the kids last.
Yes.
When was that?
No, I'm not going to disclose that.
Jason Jensen, to me, when Bion did those interviews and we were able to, that reveals so much to me. What does it reveal to you?
Well, it really reveals very clearly that the children were never in that home. One of the things that search dogs can do is their noses are 40,000 times more sensitive than the human nose. They can pick up the scent and trail it from wherever the scent was originated from. So just like we would visually see like footprints outside in the mud or something, the dog can pick up the scent and follow it to its final destination. So with a search dog not picking up the scent of the children at all, that to me means they were never in that home.
Again, there's some shots from the neighbor of that night. And this is the vigil that's going on right now. Do we have audio of that? Okay. We're going to keep our eye on what's going out there. Really a sad night. Incredibly tragic night. Our guests are going to stay with us. When we come back, what I want to do, like I said before, was break down the story of these parents. What did they say? Does their story make any sense? Are there any clues in what they are revealing? We'll talk about that when we come back as we remember Orrin and Orson West.
Have you heard the news?
What is the word on the street?
Until the day is done, they're not afraid. Like the lonely Jesus.
Heartbreak tonight in Bakersfield, California. This is a vigil in honor of two little boys, Orrin and Orson West, 3 and 4 years old. Today, their parents who adopted them were charged with their murders. But as we sit here tonight, those two boys have still not been recovered. Investigators have not found them. Someone knows something about where they are. But until they come back, that family will not rest, and Warren and Orson will not rest in peace. This is a case that we were profiling in our unsolved case file segment, and now it is solved according to the district attorney, but there is still the search for those bodies. The parents, what do they have to say about all this? Well, obviously they didn't speak today, but when they first reported their children missing, they did speak publicly. Here's their story.
We just want to thank everyone in the community for all the support we've seen. We felt so helpless, and seeing everybody out here really looking and helping out really means a lot.
So, tell us what happened the night those kids went missing.
In our yard.
It was cold. I was going to make a fire. There's a lot of wood in this area right here next to our house. I opened up the back gate. I'm throwing wood, bringing it inside the house. My wife's inside. She was actually wrapping gifts, so we thought it was a good idea. Our youngest two go outside and play with chalk in the back patio. Do not let them go on the dirt in the backyard. Keep them close. They was playing with chalk. And I came to the house. I saw them there. One house. I came back out. I didn't see them now. I immediately went back in, asked my wife, did you see the boys? She said, no, they should be outside playing with chalk. I said, well, I didn't see them, so I came back outside and I started searching my backyard. I searched the whole thing. I realized that I left the gate open and I panicked, came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife. Once that hadn't pan out, I got in the van. I looked down the street, both directions. It was getting dark, getting cold. I got in the van and I hit a bunch of corners. I went down this street. I turned my light on. I searched. I called their names. Talked to a gentleman on the street on the other side over there. He didn't see them. So then I came home and I told my wife, we need to call the cops. It's getting dark and I need help. We got to get going. So I called the cops. Cops came. First thing they did was tell us to stay in the house so they can get a hold of us. And they had us just sitting there, and we wanted to keep searching. But everybody came out in droves, and I wanted to thank you guys that night, but we couldn't go outside.
The cops told us the best are out here.
The best are out here searching, and we appreciate it. And nobody ever could tell. We could never talk to anybody, and that was the issue.
We just want to thank everybody.
We really want to thank you guys.
Please, if anybody has seen them, please call. Let somebody know.
It called the cops. Call California City Police Department. Call them and let them know what you seen, if you see anything. Our boys, they are going to be rambunctious. Okay, they are going to be here in this area, and I really would like to go in the houses, but it's not because I want to invade people's privacy. I just want to know. Make sure. That's it.
Investigators don't believe them. They just don't. Let's bring back in our guests, Jason Jensen, Dr. Laura Petler, Bayan Wang, and Vanya Patino still with us. Dr. Laura Petler, forensic criminologist. I know you've studied this statement that was made by the parents. Your thoughts, your analysis.
So just off the top of my head, the very first thing that I want to point out about their statement is that both of them are exhibiting body language consistent with being closed off. Instead of welcoming and matching what they're saying, all of this help and all of this assistance, their bodies are closed off. They're looking down. Their arms are crossed, she's swaying, and it's very, very interesting to analyze just their body language, which falls under the realm of staging we call nonverbal staging. Most communication is nonverbal and it's involuntary. And they're telling a huge story there. When it comes to their statements, he said, I realized that I left the back gate open and I panicked. And I came inside the house, searched the house, me and my wife. The chronology is wrong there, Vinny. He shouldn't have said it that way if it was the truth. If it was the truth, he would have said, I realized I left the gate open and I panicked, so I ran outside the gate looking for the boys. He didn't go outside, he went inside. And then he said, I searched the house, me and my wife, instead of me and my wife searched the house. In diagrammatic statement analysis, it's based in grammar, and this statement is reeking of deception. And that is just one sentence of many that I've analyzed throughout his statement to police. So from the linguistic staging standpoint and the statement analysis standpoint, we could go on and on and on, understanding why he chose the words he did, why they use the tone they do, their idiolects, their sentence structure, and all the oral effects of linguistic staging.
Maya Wang, let me ask you, when these children went missing, what do we know about that day, that night when they went missing? And were there other people around? Were there neighbors? And did anyone else see anything suspicious, like someone coming by in a car? Did police check the neighboring homes?
No, I mean, look, this is a desert city, 14,000 population, but it's not, under a rock. Yeah, this is a neighborhood. There's people out. I mean, while we were there, there's people watering their lawns. There's people going in and out of their garages. Nobody saw anything that day. And you can ask law enforcement about that too. I mean, we've been hearing from people like Dr. Laura talking about the body language, but it's just one of those things where anybody heard this, you don't need to be an expert. A lot of people had a hunch from the beginning. A lot of this stuff that these two parents were saying was suspicious. And I think we're incredibly fortunate to have experts like Dr. Laura, dissect it like that. But I think one thing that stuck out to the reporters there, and as soon as the parents went inside, we kind of just stared at each other like, wow, did that just happen? Is when I posed the question, hey, there's people who think you guys may be directly involved in the kids go missing. And instead of the parents saying, getting infuriated that they're being accused of something, they said, oh, hey, they said something along the terms of, we understand why someone might think that. Who says that? I mean, the experts don't need to raise that flag. I mean, who says that? I mean, if someone said I did something to my dog, I would be incredibly infuriated and have some choice words for them, but accusing me of something that I didn't do. So I think that was one thing from the very beginning that the entire community kind of clinged on, is the words that are coming out of these parents' mouth are incredibly suspicious. And that's why it's super important that the DA mentioned today that she has direct and circumstantial evidence. They only have one shot at putting these parents away for the charges that they're trying them for. And they've had 14 months to gather that. So the community is hoping that they are darn sure that they have, if not a smoking gun, something close to it. These parents, if they're guilty of all the charges filed against them, they're looking at 30 years to life. There's no closure for the families who are being impacted by this. Absolutely none. I heard some people say, hey, this is the end. They got it. They solved this. Until these parents were found guilty, no one in that family, in the biological family, anyone who loves these kids could really sleep at night without wondering, geez, they don't have the bodies. There's only 2 no-body homicides that Cynthia Zimmer could have thought of at the presser that they successfully won in Kern County. There may be possibly more, but she only cited 2. So, guys, 14 months. And it's been a giant rabbit hole the entire time. And there was a lot of questions that Cynthia Zimmer could not answer today. How do you guys know the boys were killed? How were they killed?
She can't reveal that, but the one thing you did say that I think was significant, Jason Jensen, she said they have direct evidence. In the legal sense, direct evidence, from my perspective, means either a confession, an eyewitness, or a videotape, okay? Someone that saw what happened, someone who was told what was happened by someone who did it, or some surveillance video somewhere. To me, that is the key piece in all of this.
Right. And as a former prosecutor, you would know that. The rest of us, like some of the red flags that popped up for me, given the fact that as a private investigator, I'm routinely hired to find missing persons, and given the fact that I have a search dog myself, the things that really stood out to me concerning this couple is the fact that when it came to searching, there were dozens of searches and they didn't participate. There were scores of vigils and they never attended. They acted like they were not a concerned couple. That to me, as a red flag, would indicate, but they have no desire to look because they already subconsciously know.
Absolutely. And before we go, Vanya Patino from KERO in Bakersfield, what's next for these parents? Are they going to be in a courtroom soon?
Yes, courtroom actually tomorrow at 8:30. Our crews will definitely be there. Hopefully we get some more answers as to all the unanswered questions that we had today from District Attorney Cynthia Simmer.
All right. Incredible job. Thank you, everyone. Jason Jensen, Dr. Laura Pettler, Brian Wang, Vanya Patino. Our coverage of this will continue throughout the week and until we get to that trial, obviously. Appreciate your time tonight. Still ahead. Oh, before that, though, we have an update in another.
All right, everybody, that's Vinny Politan. Thank you so much, Mr. Politan. I really like his style. Court TV, I've been a fan of Court TV for some time, about 20 plus years. I'm going to go ahead and chop it up before I play the next audio pertaining to the interview with Chief Walker and Brian Wang. If you pay close attention to the information that was just relayed, everything that has been mentioned in here was already visible with the said interview with the parents and their behavior. I'm going to chop up the things that were said in this Court TV program. No sights of the kids. I'm talking about all evidence, obvious, and as they said, circumstantial in the case pertaining to the disappearance of these boys. Neighbors didn't see the children. One or two men said they saw some kids, but not the two that are missing, but basically no sights of the children. You hear in this commentary that others are involved. One could say it's the children who are involved in the crime against the two babies because of what was said in the indictment of being induced by an authoritative figure from the DA. This woman mentions the phone calls were misleading to the 911 dispatch. Naturally, all that information will be played out in court. Who said what? The time of the call. Visuals of the behavior of Jacqueline and Trezell. I think most of us know exactly what she meant by the visuals. Talking out of turn, pausing in between sentences. You see, when you're telling the truth, you don't need to pause. Pausing means I have to think about what I'm going to say. So if I have to think about what I'm going to say, that means 9 times out of 10, I'm lying. It's no big deal to say I was gathering firewood. I turned my back. The children were outside. When I came back, they were gone. Simple as that. The deep breaths and sighing is unnecessary if you're telling the truth. It was said that scent dogs were brought in, but they did not detect the scent of the children outside. But we do know that the scent was on the inside. So what we have to ask ourselves with the information of them inside, cadaver dogs also brought in. No hint of decaying life inside. What did they give them? That's something that has not been mentioned. Naturally, it won't be mentioned. But I'm very curious to what they gave them as to say that the children were there. Because naturally, you're going to be curious. What did they give? And who's to say that it's the right scent? Because if nobody knows the children, then what are you comparing it with? As I said, I thought the last two children that were fostered adoptive, because it's like a variant of if the children were fostered or adoptive, but I watched commentary today that says that they were adopted, the last two children. So let's just say the last two children that were adopted, let's say, were they in close proximity in age with the West boys, because if they were, they could possibly be wearing the clothes of those said missing children. And naturally, their scent will be left behind. You have to also think of things in the house, such as furniture, blankets. People don't wash those things often. Robes. But clothing and furniture, definitely. But that's, I think, going to be an interesting thing as far as evidence of what was left behind to say, indeed, these are the DNA, the scent of the children. They asked about a positive idea when the children were last seen. Bayan asked Mr. Walker this. Chief Walker's response is December 21st by the parents. What else do you have? They moved out to the middle of nowhere. Nobody saw the kids in the neighborhood. So all you have is just the parents' version that they were last in their possession. But naturally, those who were following the content of this story know that a video was uploaded the weekend before. And I keep getting the dates mixed up, and I apologize for that. Monday was the 21st in 2020. So Saturday would have been the 19th. And I keep saying Sundays. Pardon my manners. On that Saturday, they're being seen entering into a van with 4 children. I do believe that that is part of the evidence as well that shows that the children never made it to Cal City. Neighbors, once again, have not seen the children. It was asked also about the grandmother. They don't say which grandmother, if it's Trezell's mother or Jacqueline's mother. But the child, allegedly, children were last seen in Bakersfield. He asked for a date by and Wayne. This is going to be very pivotal in the next live that I bring to you pertaining to Wanda West. Chief Walker declines to answer of the date that Wanda gave when she last saw the West boys. Don't you find that interesting? Why is that? Why wouldn't he give that answer? Is it perhaps Trezell hadn't conferred with his mother to give her the lowdown of this ruse that he and Jacqueline were going to bring forth to the public? So the date that she gave does not coincide with December 21st, 2020. Who knows? We'll find all this out during court. The dog's not picking up the scents outside. It's very pivotal when allegedly that is where the children were supposed to be playing. Trezell grunting after using the word rambunctious is very telling, because as I told you in the live the other day, when he says that word rambunctious and then grunts as if he's agitated by even having to spin this web, he is reliving September 2020. You see, if you watch carefully, they're telling on themselves. They told on themselves in the interview. If you see them, they'll be rambunctious, which we know that's a lie because now they're deemed dead. So who was going to see them? They knew nobody was going to see them. But see, he's reliving it in his mind. Killed these kids because they're damn rambunctious. Aided my children to murder more children. He was reliving the moment. This is more diabolical than I could ever have imagined. He was standing there reliving, dealing with those kids in that very moment with that news interview. This lady who's a psychologist gives us information about staging, verbal staging, which is them swaying back and forth, talking in different contexts, going in the house, coming out the house. Naturally, if you're going to look for someone, when you look out the gate, as she said, they're outside, so why are you going inside to look for them? You'd say, oh, I went to the gate. After I realized it, I left it open. I walked to the curb. I walked to the stop sign. Instead, he says, I went inside. And 1 minute he's saying, I look, then we look. See, it kept changing. The grammar is a part of the staging, such as with the 911 call. That was staging. Swaying back and forth in front of the camera, Miss Jacqueline, staging. Looking downward, staging. Both of them looking over to the corner. They were looking at the Bio family. I caught that. When you see a still picture of them, both of their eyes are looking in the same direction. They were watching the family because they were scared. They didn't know what was going to jump off because they were hollering and screaming and ranting and raving, bickering, asking them 1,000 questions, and they were foolishly stupid enough to answer the questions. Most people probably wouldn't even responded. And then naturally telling the people that we understand. You would think that we've done something to your kid. As Brian Wang said, who the hell says that? You're supposed to defend yourself. Hey, no, not me. I would never do that. Would never hurt a child. You all trusted us to take care of these kids. We love these kids. I would never. My wife would never. You never heard that. Deception. As I said, the grammar usage was out of turn when he was describing going in and out of the house when the children were allegedly missing. Direct evidence, the DA says. Politan says, the only direct evidence they could possibly have is 1, a confession. 2, eyewitnesses. 3, they told someone. And 4, they taped the crime, videoed the crime. I do believe it could be possibly all of the 4, 3 at the most. Did they tell someone? I don't know. These are very secretive people. They've lived like hermits, so who's to say that they would ever confide in anyone? Nobody's come forward to say, yeah, they told me this, they told me that. Nothing like the Summer Wells case where you have chit-chat boxes. You don't know what to believe. If the parents talked or if they told somebody something. Because in the end, a story is just that, someone's version. They didn't help search for the children or attend any vigils, as they said in this commentary, as if unconcerned about the children because you already knew they weren't coming back. So why am I going to search for somebody? 1, I didn't want in the first damn place. Hey, 2, I got rid of them. 3, they ain't coming back. I ain't got to go search for them. It's no point. They know where the children are. Indeed. Part 2 of this visual of evidence. When we watch the news of them doing the raids, I do believe Biden he did ask the chief in the interview I'm going to play next, how many times the Cal City go search that house on Aspen Drive. He says 4. What was obvious to me even then, a year ago, when they were going into the house searching, is when I saw the officers draw their weapons. First thing I said was, if these people are cooperating with them, why are they drawing their weapons to go search the house? That always stuck out to me as peculiar. But see, they were laying out what is now come to light, that these people are guilty of harming the children. Those officers knew they harmed the children. Chief Walker knew they harmed the children because, bingo card, the case was turned over to Bakersfield, California Police Department week 1. So that means they had to notify Cal City that they do believe these people harmed the kids. They had to have told Chief Walker. I don't think that they would have let him stay in the dark pertaining to the information that they got. And that is coming directly from the district attorney's own mouth, Ms. Zimmer, that one weekend they had crucial information given to them pertaining to the case. And that's why the case was turned over to the Bakersfield Police Department. 1, I believe it is because the children told on themselves that they were participants in the crime. Possibly also told that they were discarded. What they were discarded in. Weapons used, hands used. The video uploaded to YouTube. If it was filmed, if their parents stood there with a phone filming. I believe digital data came later because naturally it takes time to gather information from the phones. You will also hear in commentary from Brian Wang with Mr. Walker that their phones were given back to them about a month later. Very interesting. Digging up on the yard, another visual of evidence. They dug up the backyard, plucked holes in the backyard as if they were planting flowers. The police, shut up, Queen. raking over the yard next door with that little bitty lawnmower instrument. That was very telling. What are you looking for? It's been weeks now. You're steady going back and forth in and out of these people's homes, raking up the yard next door. What are you looking for? But as Chief Walker tells Brian Wang, we didn't find anything, no scent of decaying human beings inside. Naturally, nothing was found in the backyard. Nothing was found next door. But when you're watching this play out on TV, you have to ask yourself, why are they still at these people's houses? But as Chief Walker says, we work our way from the inside and then to the out. And I think we all know that they never made it to the outside. They stayed on the inside, pertaining to the disappearance of these boys. I've just given you the dissection pertaining to the evidence that I believe is gathered in this case that was put in the indictment against Trezell and Jacqueline West. What is the truth? Will they tell the truth in court? Will they turn on one another? Plea deal offered? I can't say. But one thing I do know, I can't see someone taking a plea if they entered a not guilty plea. What would be the point? It would not make any sense, because then you're contradicting the plea to then give up where the bodies can be found. So long as you don't have the bodies, you don't have anything against me except for whatever I foolishly left behind. That is the title of this video. You forgot something, Jackie Trezell. You left something behind in that apartment. You left something on debris in the house, hair fibers, saliva. You left something. And I do believe it's blood trace evidence. Possibly on your clothes. You were stupid enough to still keep your same clothes. Possibly kept clothes that belonged to the children. Because I do believe, I could be wrong, that the other children were in close proximity of age. There's a difference in opinion pertaining to that. We'd have to go back to the beginning of the story to get the ages of the said children that were allegedly adopted by Jacqueline and Trezell, the remaining two, alongside their adoptive children who are the older children. You left something behind and you forgot about it when you didn't pay attention. And that is going to be your demise in this trial. You're facing each 2 counts, second-degree murder. Each child carries a 15 to life sentence, you see. So when you rack up 2 kids, a murder per child, that gives you your 30 years in prison. Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. I will now play you the interview by Wang and Chief Walker. Thank you for your patience and holding on, listening to the Queen. After this live, I will go live again, and that information I will bring to you will be pertaining to Wanda West. Thank you. Exclusive interview. Police chief reveals new details about missing California City toddlers. This is by 23 ABC News, KERO TV. This was uploaded 1 year ago. Pay very close attention to this interview, because when you watch it, you can go to my community page. It's posted there. You will see the actions of Mr. Chief Walker. I'm telling you, he was telling you everything you needed to know if you were paying close attention. Thank you so much for joining me.
And those are obviously items that
Bakersfield PD, Kern County DA. We still are in with the FBI. So that's those are probably the 4 main ones right now.
And through the course of the last month, you and I have spoken several times, every morning, every night.
At least.
Right. And I always check to see if there's any updates.
Right.
Now that we are a month out and I have the luxury of having you in front of me, I'd like to know I want to just basically run through a lot of the questions I've asked before in case anything's changed, and also some new questions that I've drawn up here.
Sure.
So there seems to be a bit of a discrepancy of when the kids were reported missing. So when you guys responded to the parents' home, the adoptive parents' home, Trezell and Jacqueline was, when did they tell you they noticed the kids go missing?
The timeline that we received from them is the kids have been gone 15 to 20 minutes prior to them making the call to us. So they noticed the kids gone. They searched the house. They searched the immediate area. And I believe Trezell actually got in his car and went searching in his car, came back. When they came to the realization they needed help, they called us.
So you're saying from the moment they noticed that Orson and Warren West go missing, they told you that it was within 15 to 20 minutes of that time that they called police?
Per their statement, that's correct.
What time exactly did police get a call for service?
The call got dispatched at 17:43, which would be 5:43 p.m. in the evening.
Okay.
On Monday, the 21st of December.
So you're saying that's when it was dispatched. When did the call come in? Just a few minutes prior to dispatch?
Yeah, it only took minutes once the call came in to dispatch the call out, and we were on scene within 6 minutes.
Okay, so that would be police arriving by 5:50ish.
At least, yeah.
Okay. We spoke in the past about where police start with investigations like this, missing children's. Tell me about the nature of that.
Commonly, particularly with children, you always want to search from the inside out. You know, many times parents panic and believe their kids, ran out the door and ran down the street, which could be. But my training experience, you start from the inside out, always. So that's what occurred. My officers started from the inside. They searched the house. They searched the yards. They searched the shed in the back. And then they started to widen their search out into the neighborhood.
Got it. And from my understanding, it was the very next day that there was a search warrant executed at the home.
That's correct.
There needs to be probable cause for a search warrant to be granted by a judge.
Mm-hmm.
What was that probable cause to go in there with a search warrant?
Well, particularly when small kids are involved, we have the right to go in and search. So just for the protection of the kids, to make sure that, there's no foul play or the kids aren't somewhere inside the house.
Okay. What items were collected the first time of the search warrant?
Numerous items were collected that first time through. So I'm not going to disclose exactly what we took, but mostly basic items. Mostly electronic items.
What kind of items?
Mostly electronic.
Phones.
Yeah.
Okay.
iPads.
Has that since been returned to the parents?
Some of it. Okay. Some of it, to the best of my knowledge. I know for sure they've received their phones back.
Okay. Was their car at one point towed from their home?
Yes. Excuse me. I apologize. Yes.
Okay. Was luminol used on the vehicle?
Yes.
What does luminol detect?
I don't know how to put that in layman's terms.
What is it typically used for, luminol?
Generally blood, to the best of my knowledge.
Was there any sight of that in the van?
No.
In the initial search of the home, there were scent dogs used, correct?
Correct.
What was the purpose of that?
To locate the children. If they pick up the scent of the kids in the house, once they get the scent of the kids in the house, then they like us, start to widen their search. But the dogs never picked up any scent outside the house.
Can you put that in terms of why that is important to note, that there was no scent of the kids outside of the home?
It doesn't necessarily mean anything in particular, but it does lead us to believe that, the kids did not wander outside the house. But once again, that's not necessarily, 100%. But the dogs didn't detect any scents outside the house.
These dogs are fully trained for this, correct?
Correct.
There was no extreme weather patterns that day that we know of. There wasn't extreme wind like there is now.
No.
Did you guys find that a bit alarming or of interest?
Of course. Of course.
Now, scent dogs are trained to do a particular thing. They're unless they're dual trained, they're trained to do one specific thing, pick a scent, and find where it's gone. Was there any other dogs used in the home?
Yes, we had a cadaver dog come in as well.
And what are cadaver dogs trained to do?
Find dead bodies. So, none found.
They didn't detect anything at all?
No.
Okay. How many additional times has law enforcement gone into the home?
Since first day, we've been in there at least 4 times that I know of.
And what items were collected during those times?
Once again, several other items that we believe could be of evidentiary value.
And those are obviously items that you are unable to disclose at this time.
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned particular attention to the backyard in our previous conversations.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of work has been done in the backyard?
That backyard has been completely excavated by an FBI forensic team. We found some, piles of dirt back there. So just to be sure, we actually dug them up.
Sure of what?
Sure that there wasn't anything in the backyard that, could lead us to the kids.
Or being sure that the kids weren't in the backyard.
Correct.
You mentioned that you go from the inside out. You expanded to the neighborhood. Initially, you guys spoke to all the neighbors in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Did they mention any sightings of the boys?
Once they went missing?
Yes.
No.
And I recall at the time we spoke, you said that there was no sighting of the boys ever since they were there in September.
Originally, the neighbors we did contact said that they had no knowledge there were kids in the house, but since then we have had neighbors come forward and say that they did have knowledge that there were children staying in the house.
So neighbors had knowledge there was children in the home, but there was never a positive idea of Orrin or Orson, right?
No. Or any of the kids for that matter.
So none of the kids have ever been positively ID'd, but there has been neighbors that told you, hey, we were aware that there were children.
Yes, that is correct, Sting.
Okay. Now, I've asked you this before, but where was the last positive ID, hence the last time Orrin and Orson were seen?
To the best of our knowledge?
Yes.
The day that they went missing.
From the parents?
From the parents.
Now, you guys go to the neighborhood to see if anybody else has seen the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about anyone other than the adoptive parents. Was there a last positive ID of Orrin and Orson West anywhere other than California City?
Probably Bakersfield with the grandmother.
Okay, so then the grandmother confirmed a specific date where she saw the kids last.
Yes.
When was that?
I'm not going to disclose that.
Okay. Has there been anybody other than family that has positively ID'd had seen Orrin and Orson West in Bakersfield?
I would have to review the notes, but yes.
Yes, that there has been someone other than family that has seen the 2 kids.
Yes.
Positively ID'd them.
Yes.
Can you disclose that date?
No.
And for people who watch this and wonder, hey, why can't they disclose that? What is the reasoning?
Because those are significant dates, and we don't want people to start speculating, well, again, with the rumors, well, they saw him on this date, but they didn't see him on that date, so this must mean this is what happened, and that's not true. So we want to keep those dates close to the vest and those people as well.
Yeah, and I should also mention that, in the media, we're very careful with the way we portray things. We also have to be very mindful of our questions. We have to be,
and I appreciate that,
very mindful of not alleging anything ourselves.
Right.
But if a third party looks at this investigation so far, You mentioned scent dogs going to the home, the cadaver dog, digging up the backyard to make sure the kids weren't buried there.
Correct.
Questioning the parents. That has happened, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. It leads me to ask, it leads me first to say, it's not a surprise or a secret that there is a focus in one part of the investigation on the parents, correct?
Of course.
So with that, I've asked you this before. Has there been any suspect or suspects named in this case so far?
No.
Any persons of interest at this point?
Of course.
Who?
I can't disclose that.
Okay. Person or persons of interest?
I won't disclose that either.
Okay. Has anyone been arrested since the day these kids went missing?
In conjunction with this case, no. No one.
Okay. Anyone detained since the first day these kids went missing?
No.
Okay, so you earlier mentioned that you guys questioned the parents.
Yes.
Is questioning synonymous with interrogating?
No.
What's the difference?
An interrogation, well, again, you're splitting hairs. An interrogation is, I want to know this and I want to know from you, and I believe you know this information. Where this is more of it's informative for us. Where did you see them last? What were they wearing? Where were you that day? Is there any possible way they could have done this? Is there any possible way they could have done that? It's a total different dynamic. But again, you're splitting hairs. Interrogation, questioning. Can they be synonymous? Sure.
And it's important to note that the adoptive parents, according to what you've told me in the past, they've been more than willing to come in anytime you guys have requested, correct?
Yes, they've come in multiple times, actually.
More than what, a handful, 5 times, 6 times?
3 times that I know for sure.
Okay. And
Here.
The nature of all those have just been questioning?
Yeah, follow-up questions. Okay, we didn't ask this last time. We're still trying to find your kids. What about these people? What about this? Were you with them here? Were you with them there? We're just trying to narrow the scope of our investigation as well, hopefully with their cooperation.
Okay. Now, let's step back from this case for a second. From your experience, how many years have you had in law enforcement?
Just passing 30.
Okay, so a lot of experience, right?
A lot of experience.
Seen a lot of things.
Yes.
Worked a lot of cases.
Yes.
Okay. Well, with all that experience, are lie detector tests a useful investigative tool?
Yes, but they're not admissible in court. But are they a good tool? Sure.
Does law enforcement in California have the ability to request a lie detector test from anyone in any case?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's completely voluntary.
Here in California City, have you guys ever asked someone to take a lie detector test for any case?
Of course. Yes.
And what kind of cases are those where a lie detector test, you go, hey, let's see if we could ask for this?
Types of cases like this.
Okay.
We just want to confirm or deny, the credibility of someone's statement.
Types of cases like this, you say, 2 missing kids, a lot of different factors involved.
A lot.
So it's not a stretch for me to ask, did you guys ask the parents to take a lie detector test?
I'm not going to disclose that.
Not asking if they denied it, just asking if it was...
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Yes, you guys asked the parents.
Yes, we did.
And you can't tell me anything after that?
No.
Okay. In our previous conversations, you also mentioned briefly about where the other kids are. Just to confirm, there's 2 biological children of Trezell and Jacqueline West.
Correct.
4 adoptive kids in total. 2 of those were born in Orson West.
The way I understand it, and the way I've been briefed on it, there was two biological children, 2 foster children, and Orrin and Orson were actually adopted. So, and then ranging in ages from 10 all the way down to 3.
Were you guys able to confirm that the day the 2 boys went missing, that the parents' other 4 children were not at the home at the time?
They were not at the home at the time. That is correct.
Where were they?
They were in Bakersfield with the grandmother.
What was the reason for that?
I think it was a holiday visit. That's the way it was explained to me.
Okay. Where are the kids now? The other parents' children, where are they now?
In foster care.
They're not being held by another family member or anything like that?
No.
They're all in foster care?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Ever since these kids went missing, Warren and Orson West, the parents' other 4 children have been in foster care?
Correct.
Why?
Until we can determine what happened to the other 2 kids, and determine, well, then it's up to Children's Services when they want to release the children back to the parents.
So at this point, it's not really in authorities' hands. You guys share information with CPS. They look at the situation, and at this point, they're acting on their own and deciding what happens with the children.
Correct.
So we've reached out to CPS, our newsroom has, and we asked, hey, in what instances are kids taken away from, parental figures? And they said when there is implications, proof that there was neglect or abuse.
Mm-hmm.
In your guys' investigation, was there any proof of that or suspicion of that with the parents' other children?
Oh, I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay. We've also, in previous conversations, spoken about surveillance footage.
Okay.
Obviously, Cal City PD is aware that there's surveillance footage out there, correct?
There's footage off of security cameras from the neighboring homes. That is correct.
Okay. Are you aware of what's been shown in any of the footage?
Yes. I get briefed on that daily. Again, we have hours and hours of that we're reviewing. So yes, but I get briefed.
Okay. And essentially, and we could clear up, just in our last conversation, you weren't able to disclose what was in that film.
That is correct.
Okay. And that's all because it's part of the investigation, correct, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're not able to comment whether only certain amount of kids were seen in the parents' adoptive home from the surveillance footage in the area.
No, I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay. You're not able to say whether there was a total of 6 or a total of 4 in all the days you guys have seen?
No, because then once again, it's going to cause speculation.
Okay. Let's talk about that for a second. The media, we always have keyboard warriors. They type in and they're, upset about certain things, what we're covering, what we're not covering.
Sure.
I'm sure during this investigation, you've noticed that on the end of law enforcement too.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
What things stand out that you'd like to address?
Again, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of belief on what we should be doing, when in fact we're probably already doing that, or places we should be looking where we probably already looked, and that's okay. People can speculate as long as they know, or I would hope that they believe that we're doing everything we can to locate these kids. I mean, if you've thought of it, we've probably looked there, but that's okay. If you don't think we've looked there, please share that information with us, and we will. A lot of people have called in and give us clues or tips. We haven't directly gotten back to them, but we have followed up on those clues. So anything that's viable that comes in where we can have a follow-up meaning something specific, a specific location, a specific person, a specific vehicle with a license plate. We can follow up on all that stuff. It's the, I think I saw this and I maybe saw that. And, I had a dream the other night that this happened, all that's good stuff. And I appreciate it. And again, I would never turn down any help. We're not closed off to anything, but to help us, we need specifics. And if you've never been in this business or been down this road, everyone's going to have speculations of what they feel that we should be doing, and that's okay. They watch a lot of TV, and that's okay too. But I just want to assure everybody that we are doing everything possible to find these kids and bring them home.
You guys were mentioning the amount. You were mentioning the amount of tips you guys are getting. Is it how many would you say you get a day?
A day, 20 or 30 probably. easily.
Calling in through how?
You calling me mostly. I get a lot of calls in my dispatch. They are calling our anonymous tip line, but my dispatchers have they have tablets right there in their dispatch center with all these different clues, and as they come in, they pass them on to me, and then I pass them on to whoever I want to do the follow up.
And you say that there's, going back to, the attacks you're saying you're getting, when people are saying, hey, look, how can law enforcement not have seen here? How can they have not done that? You're saying you guys probably already are doing this.
Yes.
How much does law enforcement know? How much is law enforcement doing that us in the media or people in the public don't know about, just to, make sure that the investigation is, not being messed with? Not being, keeping the integrity of the investigation.
Well, again, we're gathering as much information as we can. We're sharing that information. We're putting that information together to see where this thing or if it will lead us in a certain direction. But again, we can't be closed off. We have to look at this, and if the evidence starts to build over here and the mountain gets higher and higher, we're going to start focusing here more. But if something comes in that leads us another, then we're going to at least check that out and see how that weighs out against this. Does it match up? Does it not? Are we totally in the wrong spot? We could be. But as the information comes in, this mountain keeps building. So we need to, because we don't want to specifically look at one thing or one person, because first of all, that's not fair. And second of all, that means we're not open to the whole investigation. We have to be completely open. But however, we have to continue to follow the leads and clues where they go. And if they keep going, pointing in that same direction, then we're going to keep following that path.
Has that path led you to believe that these kids are dead?
No. I have to remain optimistic and hopeful that that's not true, and that it's going to lead us to where they actually are.
Well, let me ask you. We all want to be hopeful these kids are alive.
Of course.
But has your investigation led you to believe that you say foul play is involved?
I believe so, but that doesn't mean they're dead.
Okay.
It doesn't mean they're dead at all. I'm just saying my portion of the investigation at this point, how did those kids get out of that backyard? It's a big backyard. It's well fenced in. The timeline between the time that the dad said they went missing to the time that we were on scene, how far could they have gone on their own? Which leads me to believe somehow they got removed from that backyard.
Do you question whether they were ever actually in that backyard, given everything you've told me so far?
We have to question everything. Of course.
Do you think the kids, any leads saying that they may have been kidnapped?
I'm not going to comment on that because I don't want to give you a bad answer, because that's a pretty loaded question. If someone took them out of the backyard, and then that would mean they were kidnapped.
And you
but no one's come forward and offered money for the return at all. So, and I believe the reward money is up to $100,000. So, but no one's come forward yet.
Any indication these kids could have been trafficked?
That's always a possibility. Yeah. Again, that goes back to semantics. Were they kidnapped? Kidnapping means illegally moving one person from one point to another, whether it's from the front yard to the backyard or from the backyard to wherever. But kidnapping means that they went against their will somewhere they didn't want to go. And if they've taken them there now, and now they're trying to traffic them, so it's kind of one and the same. So it's a possibility. We're open to all that.
There's all these different factors that I'm laying out. And forgive me, I know there's a lot of them that you can't answer.
Correct, and I'm sorry I can't. I'd love to tell you, exactly you're right, and this is what we know, and this is what we're looking at, and this is what we want to do, and we have this specific suspect in mind, and we're going to make an arrest today. I would love to tell you that.
And just to be clear, I appreciate all the information you've shared so far. There's no bad blood here.
No.
Just as a journalist, I just have to ask these.
No, I understand, and I'm trying to be as transparent as I can without, tainting the investigation.
Completely understand, and I respect that fully. You were talking about the mountain of evidence you guys are building that leads you guys to look here.
Right.
Are you speaking in terms of a search, or are you speaking in terms of the nature of why they went missing?
I don't know.
You were talking about how, you use resources in certain areas.
Right.
Look at the mountain of evidence that you guys have somewhere.
Right.
Speaking of that, still, is there any physical evidence that you guys have found that indicates foul play?
Well, again, physical evidence, as far as DNA, as far as bloody clothing, something like that. Is that what you're referring to?
Sure.
I mean, physical evidence could be a security camera. Maybe. No.
Okay. Circumstantial evidence. How much of that do you guys have?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me ask, just in terms of the overall investigation. At the beginning of this conversation, I asked how many agencies are involved. Cal City Police, you guys, how many police officers do you guys have?
We have 13 sworn, including me.
Okay. And how many people each day, because you guys are the lead investigators, are working this case?
Off and on, at least 3. So that taxes my resources, but that's okay. My guys are working hard, and they don't complain about it at all.
So you have basically 3 rotating,
right,
working this case every.
We have somebody touching on it somehow every day.
And just to be clear for those people who hear this interview, doesn't mean there's 3 total personnel working this, right? Is there for BPD and KCSO and FBI?
Oh no, there's a ton of people working on this thing
every single day.
Yes, absolutely. And we liaison with them, or I do daily. I reach out to them and we liaison. Okay, what do we got today? This is what we got. Anything new? What do we need to do tomorrow? Which way are we going tomorrow? What else can we get? And every time I get a tip or a clue, I pass it on to them as well. And if they can follow up on it, great.
And as I'm closing up here, I just want to know, have the adoptive parents, Jacqueline and Trezell, have they been asked not to leave California?
Not to my knowledge. We never asked them that.
Are they?
All we asked them is to be available if we need to get a hold of them, and they have been.
Okay. Any other? You guys are lead investigators. You guys share information, as you've been told to me. Has any other authority suggested to Jacqueline and Trezell not to leave California?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Anything I'm not asking? And any last tidbits that you want to leave for anybody who has been following this case?
No, and I say this every time we interview that, we haven't given up. We're still trying. We're still working at this thing actively. So I would hope anybody out there who has anything that can help us, we're more than willing to follow up. And we're still trying.
Got it. I'm sorry, I'm just getting some more questions here. Silver Saddle Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last search that authorities were involved in, correct?
In Cal City, yes.
Okay. Where else have authorities searched? I know I asked you this before, but in case
multiple locations. We've searched. Well, we had the community come out. We searched almost a 5 square miles around the desert adjacent to their home. We've done personally searches throughout the neighborhood. We went out to Silver Saddle Ranch last week with about 50 personnel. Silver Saddle, the resort area itself, is probably about 20 square miles with an old hotel and banquet rooms. And we searched every single one of those individually, along with Kern County Sheriff Search and Rescue. They came out and searched the whole property on foot. Barns, there's all kinds of recreation rooms out there, little campsites. Searched the whole thing. Took us 3-4 hours. and came up empty.
Any indication that this may become a cold case?
Not at this point. I think we still have enough to go on for now. But again, we reevaluate that daily and what are we going to do next. So, but you know, missing is never, they never go away until you find those people. So cold case would mean we put it on a box and put it on a shelf somewhere and we revisit it every once in a while. But even the cold cases I have now, I have someone working on them every day. I have a full-time crime analyst that works on them daily. So I don't see this going away anytime soon, unless we find them.
Right. I'm curious to know why you mentioned at the beginning that the Kern County District Attorney is involved.
Mm-hmm.
Why
That's common.
How, in what capacity?
That's assisting us because they have investigators. The district attorney, Cindy Zimmer, she's great. She's always very helpful and willing to help us out. She had some personnel that she could spare to help us come down and search, so they do so.
Got it. Okay, so it's more sort of an investigatory thing.
Kind of a mutual aid thing.
Got it. Okay.
Because they know we don't have the bodies for especially like Silver Saddle. That would have took us days. So, they came down on the more bodies that, we were able to search the whole place in 4 hours.
Great. All right. Well, Police Chief Walker, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Woo! That was lengthy. Sorry about that. Wanted to bring you all the information so we could go back in time to the information that has brought us to what transpired last week in Bakersfield, California, with the arrest of Jacqueline and Trezell West for second-degree murder of the West boys. Now I'm going to chop this information up, and then I will be back briefly with the next live. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you all so much. Let's get this started here. Okay. Probable cause. Were the kids ever at the house, Cal City? Items were collected, mostly electronics. But he won't give information, Chief. At that time, he didn't give information of other items that were confiscated. Brian asked about luminol. Was it used on the van? He said it was used. Scent dogs used, but no scent of the children outside. The dogs were fully trained that were used to search for the said children. He asked about weather patterns. He said that there were none, Chief Walker. Cadaver dog was used, but no detection of any remains inside or outside of the house. Chief tells us that the backyard was excavated. Naturally, still nothing found. No sightings by the neighbors, but then there was discrepancy that some saw the kids, some didn't, but not specifically the smaller children. Positive ID by the parents only on December 21st, but no other neighbors or anybody else said they saw the said children. The only positive ID was allegedly by a grandmother. They don't specify which grandmother, and this was in Bakersfield, but Walker would not give the date, asked not to take the investigation and have speculation. So what was the date that one of the grandmothers gave? Was it Wanda West or Jacqueline's mother that had the children, the 4 children, the weekend before the 21st? And what was the date given? That'll be a part of my next live. The focus was on the parents. No suspects were named pertaining to the disappearance of the children. But I think we know that after listening to this now in hindsight, they did have suspects. No suspects were named, but they did have a suspect. They just wouldn't tell. He wouldn't tell Brian who. Lie detectors were given. And they are good tools to use in court, good tools to determine, information pertaining to a case. But as he said, they are admissible in court. He also said to Chief that they were involuntary to said lie detector tests. He cannot confirm or deny if they passed or not. Don't you find that interesting? Would not confirm. He also asked about footage pertaining to the neighborhood. And Chief lets it be known that, yes, there was footage in the neighborhood that was gathered. And he was aware of hours and hours of footage, and at the current time, this was around the 23rd of January, 21, that he was going through the said information. He can't disclose the findings of what was on the said footage, but I think most of us had already seen the video uploaded to YouTube pertaining to the couple entering a van with only 4 children and returning with 0 on the 19th of December. And Brian mentions that I guess it was only a certain amount of findings pertaining to this case. A lot of speculations. From people of what they should be doing, where they should go. And naturally, the chief lets it be known that they would follow up on viable tips, persons, places, vehicles, but not just, you had a dream or something you thought of. Because as you see, that's what's hindered the Summer Wells case, as per Ronnie Lawson, excuse me, that they wasted valuable time chasing things that was not viable in the Summer Wells case. He also told that there were 20 to 30 tips a day through the dispatch and anonymous tip line. He also asked about the information tips. He basically said, we go where it added up the most. And if we saw that it took another direction, then we'd go there to where it would lead to the next place if we thought that it was a good idea to go. Verifiable information as well. He also asked Brian, did the path ever lead them to think that the children were dead? He said, no, I tried to remain optimistic. He also mentioned, yes, he did suspect foul play, but that did not mean that the children were deceased. He basically was saying he was trying to figure out how did the children get out of the yard. Because naturally, if there was no evidence of scent of the children outside, no trail marks, tire marks, drag marks, then that means what? So naturally, that's where foul play came into the conversation. Because Chief was trying to figure out how did the children get outside of the yard. Brian asked him about the backyard. Did you ever question that they were ever there in the backyard, ever? And Chief's response is, I question everything. Kidnapping. He said, Chief, that's a loaded question. But didn't offer any more information. The reward was up to $100,000 at that time, January 23rd, 2021. He also asked about trafficking. The chief says that could have been a possibility as well. He would not tell him if he thought these parents were suspects, but they did have suspects in mind. So you see, Chief was giving a hint all along. Because you got to remember, we now have information that this was turned over to Bakersfield 1 week later from the call to the dispatch out of Cal City. So that means Chief already knew these people were suspects, but he never alluded to the fact to the public or during this interview 1 month later to Brian Wayne. And as he said, he wouldn't tell of this said information as to preserve and maintain the investigation. Resources was also mentioned. And he said, as far as evidence, could be clothing, could be DNA, of course, but also video surveillance. So he was telling us, once again, dropping us a hint. We may not have DNA, may not have trace evidence, blood, but he did offer and said video surveillance. See, you have to listen to the commentary because Chief Walker was dropping hints when he told you that, one, he couldn't tell you if they passed the lie detector test. He wouldn't give you the date that the grandmother saw the children. He wouldn't tell you that who's a suspect, not a suspect. Naturally, they're not supposed to tell you that anyway because that would definitely taint the investigation to reveal who you think a suspect is or is not. The fact that he dropped the T of the video surveillance. Oh, we may not have DNA, but we have the video surveillance of the neighbors. Byan asked, was there circumstantial evidence? No comment, which we already heard the DA say. There is circumstantial evidence. He mentioned that there were 13 officers total at the time working, because naturally this is a small town of 10,000 parties living in the city. 3 were actively working the case at that said time. He also said tons of people were helping. So this is where it probably got a little suspect with Byan. Oh, you have other agencies helping you? He said, oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, we got other people. We've got Kern County helping us, Bakersfield. And I think that's where Byan's ears went to alert. Like, okay, so what is Kern County doing helping? See, bingo card. That was evidence number what? 4, 5? Why would Kern County be helping? But then he says, oh, they've got the manpower, the investigators to help out, to help with the search. But we know it was more than that. We now know it was because by that time of this interview, January 23rd, when it was uploaded to the Q, the case had already been turned over to Bakersfield, but he never told Byan that, and he never told the public. He was asked also about the adoptive parents being told if they could leave Cali or not. He says not to his knowledge, and nor did any other agencies tell the couple that they could not leave the general area. He basically says in his last statements in this interview, he hadn't given up. He had not given up on the case. They searched his Silver Saddle Ranch. And I'm curious to why they went out to that ranch to search. Why is it? Why did they go out there? I'm very curious. Was that a tip from somebody? He also asked Byan about this being a cold case, and he said no. That they worked on the case every day, asked to get a conclusion. And as I said, Kern County District Attorney was working on the case. And he let it be known that we needed extra bodies to help out. See, that was clue number 1, that Kern County was involved in the investigation of the boys. It was more than just we needed extra bodies to help out with the case. They had taken the lead in the investigation. I want to make sure I've touched on everything in this said video. I think this interview was very telling. Also, in this commentary, you hear about children. Allegedly, starts off that it was 2 bio, 4 adopted. Then he corrected it to 2 bio, 2 foster, and 2 adopted, the ones that were missing. Ages ranging from 10 years old down to 3. Byan also asked about where the 4 children were. And the chief tells him they were in Bakersfield on a holiday. Naturally, that was the version given by the adoptive parents. He also asked about foster care, no family. Why? As he said, we have to determine what happened. DHS is the initiator of children being removed from the house, and that they share information amongst one another, the 2 agencies. So the police department It's not the ones that take the children out of the home. It is the CPS's job to make that decision. And obviously they took the children because 2 children went missing. No information to where the children were at that time. So that allegedly was the reason for removing the children. But as you see, during this investigation, the children were never returned to Jacqueline and Trezell West. And that is because of whatever they found week 1, the information told by the children, surveillance footage of probably only 4 children coming and going with the family, others giving information, eyewitnesses, accounts from probably Cal City to Bakersfield. Hell no, they were never going to give those kids back. But we didn't know they were never going to give the kids back. And naturally, they were sued for child support to pay the state for keeping their kids. He also said the reasonings that the state would remove children from a parent's care. And abuse and neglect was mentioned. So he asked Chief Walker, why were they removed? Chief said he would not comment. Very interesting. And as you see, he didn't confirm a lot in this case. My assessment pertaining to this interview is what I've assessed already. The digging up of the yard, the raking of the yard. They knew that they were guilty once the information came out a week later from the dispatch call. What I'd like to know is the information that was brought in after a week, the crucial information that the DA says was given to law enforcement. What is that information exactly? And did they confront Jacqueline and Trezell West with that said information? And what was their answer? Such as, we've seen you coming and going with only 4 children on the surveillance camera. Where are your other 2 children? You said you took your kids to visit your mother 2 days ago, before the 21st. Well, where were your 2 children? But naturally, they told the news, oh, we kept them. But the camera is going to say otherwise. Well, how's that possible? How could you have been keeping the 2 children when we see you getting inside of your van with only 4 and returning with 0? So I'm going to ask you, sir, ma'am, where were the 2 children 2 days beforehand when you dropped off the 4 with the grandmother, allegedly? What was their answer? The fact that they never searched for the children. Ever. Ever searched for the children. I find it very, very baffling. Proof of neglect. Abuse. What did they find when they went in the house night 1? Because you have to ask yourself, what was in that house night 1 when they called to say that the children were missing? Because if it was abuse and neglect, and Chief Walker did not want to explain himself during this interview with Brian Wang at that time, 1 year ago, one would have to ask themselves, besides what was given in for information to say that the kids never made it to Cal City and Bakersfield took the investigation over after the first week, what did they see on the first night when they went to investigate the children disappearing? What did they see in the house to determine that it was a case of abuse and neglect? What was in that house? What were the living conditions in that house? Stay woke. What was found in the van as far as luminol, hair fibers, anything left behind, anything that looked off, stains on the seats, all the seats there or not. It was alleged that one of the back seats was missing. from some YouTube information. What is truth? What is fiction? They got some of their texts back, their phones. Excuse me. Excuse me. What did they keep? What is the evidence they confiscated? Blankets, towels, clothes, shoes, socks. Anything else? Writings, journals, iPads. What was taken and what was returned? And what was kept? Very interesting information. That's my commentary. The Chief Walker knew on this said day in January, near the end of January, this interview he gave to Mr. Byron Wayne, at that moment he knew that they were suspects in the disappearance of the West boys. The case had been turned over to Bakersfield, California, and none of us knew. And when the officers went to the said house, Cal City, to do their extra searches, seizures, warrants, they were armed. And we now know why they were armed. It's because these people were deemed as suspects. And imagine that had been a hell of a secret for all these officers to hold deputies from Bakersfield to Cal City, to never tell and utter a word that these people are suspects. Beware. They all had to have known. And I think when you listen to this interview, you can gather why Kern County was involved. Not just for manpower. It is because they had taken over the investigation. Somebody sent something in to law enforcement to say these people are involved in the disappearance of these children. They spoke to the children, who naturally told on themselves that they were involved in the death of the small children. Surveillance in the general area, doorbell cameras, surveillance cameras off the houses tell the story of who was coming and going with how many children. And that was also asked inside of this interview. And naturally, Chief Walker would not respond to how many children were coming and going in the possession of Jacqueline and Trezell West. And he let it be known it was never going to be a cold case. Because as you see, all this time that went by and we were pondering and wondering what the hell was going on, questioning who was doing what, they had everything they needed to know within 1 week to at least say they were suspects in the disappearance and demise of the children. Because if indeed the children told it within a week, we aided in beating the kids. Anyone could use common sense to say the kids are not alive. They took the kids and discarded the children. It's only a matter of where did they discard the children. That's a hell of a secret to hold for a year. The only problem I have with this investigation is if indeed that was told that they beat the children, aided in killing the kids, why did they not hold them on the testimony from the children? That is the only issue I have with it going this long, 1 year. I felt like perhaps they should have been able to hold them even without digital, waited until digital came back, but yet Trezell and Jacqueline would have been inside a jail cell up until all information came back from the technology, DNA testing, so on and so forth. I want to thank you all so much for joining me, for listening to the content. Prayers for these children that they are found. But as I said, the two parties have entered in not guilty pleas, so therefore I can't see them saying where the children are. And we do not know if Trezell ever told Jacqueline where he discarded the children, because I'm going to go on the assumption that he is the ringleader as far as burying the children. Now, how much of the participation she gave and aided on that fateful day, I do not know. But I'm assuming there is evidence to show she aided in one form or fashion or another. Because when she decided to call the dispatch about the children missing, she rode the ride. Whether she took a blow or not, watched her blow or not. She knew she had possession of the children, and she never called 911 beforehand in the month of September to say, "Hi, my children are missing. I haven't seen them. I left them here, or I left them there. I left them with the father, but I come home, I'm only seeing 4 kids. I suspect foul play with my husband or whomever, or perhaps she's the one orchestrated. I don't know." But they say she's on the indictment alongside Trezell, then I'll ride with that. But the ultimate question, besides where are the boys, is why did you have your children hurt these kids? Because as I said, the differentiation of who's going to say who cared, didn't care for the children, it was all about the money. One question will come up is the fact that they still receive a stipend for adopting the kids, but a lesser amount. So if indeed it's for the money, then it would be foolish to have adopted any of the children, because then the money is lessened. So then one could say, and I'm sure his defense attorneys will say, I know you've heard rumor and rhetoric that they did this for the money. They were using these children as income. Well, why would they do that when they got a lesser amount by adopting them? That is a very valid question. What was the motive for fostering the children? What was the motive for adopting the children? What was the motive for obviously abusing and neglecting the kids and allowing your children to harm their own siblings? Children you brought into the home to raise, allegedly to care and love, but you did not. How many other people know of what happened to the children? Did they tell anybody else that they harmed the children? Did they lie and say they sent the children back or gave the children away? Gave them back to the bio family? What did they tell other people? Did Trezell West tell Wanda West what he did to those kids? Did he ever confide that, yes, I killed them because they were rambunctious? What is the truth? And does Wanda West know the truth about September 2020? Because as she said to a young lady driving by, the girl asked, "Where are the boys?" She said, "At your house." A very nasty remark. And you got it wrong, but you got it right. So I asked you, Wanda West, what is it that we got wrong? And what is it that we got right? You had knowledge all along. Join me now for live number 2 pertaining to Wanda West. Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans.